Hi everyone, it's Kimmy. This week on Mic Drop Monday, we're talking about reports of ICE agents staging in postal parking lots and what that means for letter carriers and the communities we serve. Joining us is Patrick McDonough from Branch 2810 in Arlington Heights to break down what's really happening on the ground and how postal workers are responding. We are also emphasizing the importance of wearing your seatbelt. And if you have any concerns and ideas on how we can spread the word, let us hear it. We're all ears. Well, let's get into it. This is Mic Drop Monday.
All right, welcome to the episode of Mic Drop Mondays. We have today is November the 3rd, 2025. We get that out the way. We do have a guest with us today. He is Patrick McDonough. We're going to say his full name. He's the president in Branch 2810, which is in Arlington Heights, Illinois. And as a lot of you may have seen, there was an incident last week regarding revolving around one of our carriers out there. And so we'll play the news clip and then let's talk about it.
And new here at 5 o'clock, a Ring doorbell camera capturing an immigration arrest in Arlington Heights. You can see federal agents right here getting out of a van and placing a landscaper, Muriel Medina, into custody. He does not resist arrest here, but when a nearby postal worker tries to step in, well, the agents push that postal carrier to the ground. Medina's daughter telling us that her father is undocumented. Right now, Medina is being held at that Broadview ICE facility, but has not been processed yet.
He was working, and they just kind of went straight for him. I don't know if they were looking around for other workers, but he was approached and detained. He didn't use force. He just complied with everything they said. It's very hard, very emotional. I feel very, very sad.
Now, we have reached out to the Department of Homeland Security, DHS, and the Border Patrol about Medina's arrest. So far, we have not heard anything back.
Okay. So for those, and I don't know what's going on in the other cities or, metropolitan areas, but this has become just a really big deal in the Chicago area. Not just the city of Chicago, but like all over the place. And we're having, all type of issues. So, for example, one of the issues is that in some circumstances, these and you don't know for sure who they are because they don't wear like uniforms. They're in like these unmarked cars, vans or whatever. But anyway, we know them to be ICE agents. What does ICE stand for? Immigration Control Enforcement, something like that. But anyway, so they've been doing some of their staging operations in like post office parking lots. Not clear if they're getting permission to do that. And then they're just kind of like driving around terrorizing people, just like jumping out and snatching people up. And, people are calling those things, they're calling them abductions because literally it looks like something from like one of them kidnap, like something you see on TV where someone pulls up in a van, grabs someone and throws them in the back of the van and then drives off. And so it's wild, and there's a lot of legal questions, like there's no warrants or no. I don't think they're looking for a specific person, like the daughter of that person kind of alluded to. They're just driving around, like going to Home Depots or just places where they think undocumented, people would be at, or they're out in, cutting someone's yard or whatever. So anyway, this situation with this carrier, he was delivering mail. He was in a mattress, and he saw the situation unfolding, and he was not sure what he was looking at. And when he got out to inquire or, see what the situation was, he was thrown to the ground. You can see in the video, like, he like flew across. It's kind of rough, and he's okay. Slight bruising or whatever. He did finish the route on that day. And in the post office, they put him off. So he finished the route that day. That was a Thursday last week, and then Friday, he was not able to work. It was unclear whether he was going to be in a pay status or not, like an admin leave type situation or like an emergency placement type situation. Um, but I talked with the POOM early on Saturday morning, and I don't know if it's because I talked to him or if he was already, maybe Pat, maybe you know better than me, but if they were planning on bringing him back anyway. But he got a call from his supervisor early on Saturday morning, like, you can come back to work now. So he's been back at work since then, and we don't know what if anything more will come of it. But is that about right, Pat?
Yeah, the story that I got from him is he got a phone call from the supervisor early in the morning to tell him to come back to work. So I don't know when you spoke to the plume. That could have been it, or it could have just been the supervisor, just with how short staffed we are. Just, hey, forget it, just come on back to work. But he
Well,
was happy to come back to work.
let's say it wasn't the latter, because we know they don't make any decisions on their own. So it couldn't have been that. But I talked to him probably like 6:30 in the morning. It was pretty early. So I think you guys, what, 7:30 start time over there? So it might have been after that conversation. And the Poom said we're going to bring him back, but he was saying we'll probably bring him back on Monday, kind of thing. But then, he tried to justify the action that the post office took. And they had already given him a letter. So they told him verbally when he left work on Thursday night that they were going to place him in off duty status. And then he got a letter at home on Friday. And the letter was an emergency placement letter, and it was basically some type of unacceptable conduct, one of them kind of vague disciplinary notices where it doesn't really say what you did, what rule you violated, what the level of discipline is, that kind of thing. So I thought we were going to be dealing with one of these EP situations, and kind of getting ready to fight that. And then when I talked to the Poom, he's like, nah, we're going to bring him back, blah blah blah. But he can't do that. And I'm like, well, I don't know what we can and we can't do, Pat. And I wanted to get your opinion on this, and you guys too, Renee and Sarah, because we're letter carriers out there in the community, and one, of course, we look out for the people in our community. That's our training. That's why we're there. I mean, obviously, we're there to provide a service, but while we're there, if there's any dangers or things happening or whatever, or you see something going on, we don't run the other way per se. So there's that, and then there's the whole legality of the thing. Like, the ICE agents, they're like, oh, we're federal agents, we're just like you guys, we're federal. We're like, we're providing a service to the American people. You're out here terrorizing the population. I don't know if that's the same, but I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think I said it best early when I spoke to you, Mike. I mean, I started in 2009, and for 16 years, all I've been hearing is let it cure the eyes and ears of the neighborhood. And how can we remove ourselves after we've been ingrained? And we got to watch out for these people. These people are our customers. We got to watch out for them. We have the carrier alert program that, we develop bonds with this. And I remember when I spoke to the carrier, this I think the second sentence he told me, he said that this is my friend. He gives me food. He gives me water. On the hot days, he lets me sit in his vehicle, and when it's super hot, to give me water and cool off, and they trade snacks and foods. And just to hear the emotional tie he had with that, it was it brings a different story than what the news was alluding to. And he really wanted to help his friend, and it's just unfortunate that he just didn't get the time to. The agent was so quick to just do what he did. There was no discussion, no conversation. There's no, like, Carrot keeps on saying he didn't give me 3 seconds. It felt like he had enough time to put his hands up, and by the time he put his hands up, he was on the ground. So it's tough. I don't know what you do. I mean, I don't know if I would have approached him, but I definitely would have gotten out of the car and seen what's going on. I
Right.
mean, it's definitely not right. Like, my wife was born in Mexico, so like I got to deal with this every day. But do I come home and do I got to deal with my wife being missing or things of that nature? And I would hope that if a letter carrier out there sees it, I hope they jump in, because You just never know. The fact that they don't have marked cars. I mean, in my office, I don't know if you remember this, Mike. We had that shooting of a carrier about 6 years ago
I
when they
remember.
had the postal vehicles that were unmarked, and he was shot a couple times, and luckily he survived. He's okay now. He's back to work, but ever since then, we haven't had those unmarked postal vans that we used to rent. And what's the difference between that and a federal agent going around and it looks like the van is very blacked out and you can't see inside of it. There's no markings on it. I just don't agree with that. It's just wild.
Yeah, and I haven't seen where this is like so. The local police, if they're out in the neighborhood, we don't let them use us if that makes sense. Like if the police officer comes to you and says, "Hey, I want you to get inside the door," with your arrow key so that we can then go in there and arrest somebody, whatever. Like we're not going to let them use us because we're in those communities and it's dangerous to take that type of position. And um, in this situation, it's even worse because we don't know exactly who they are. They're not identifying themselves when they're out in our communities. And to me, there's another issue there, which is that who are you detaining? I mean, what are you? How do you know if a person has documents, is a legal citizen or resident, or just by looking at them? That's how you're doing this thing. I mean, it just goes against all of our principles. And I certainly understand letter carriers wanting to help out our communities. I mean, um, I saw one of the Facebook posts, but I can't get to it now. I'd show it to you guys. But the letter carrier is going down the street and she's like, "La migra, la migra, la migra." And that's one of those things, you're just alerting the community to the presence of these people that are just coming out here abducting people off the street. And I know the community really really appreciates that. And I mean, long after these people are gone, we're still going to be out in these communities delivering the mail. Um, so I just think it's a rough situation. Renee or Sarah, you want to say anything?
Yeah, I know that we have it happening to a few carriers out in Berwyn where they have been calling and they want to know, like, can they record what's happening and what's going on, like, or what can they do? Because like you said, like, these are their customers, like these are people that they see on a daily basis, and they want to help protect them, but at the same time they also want to protect themselves because they're afraid, well, hey, like if I react or if I do this or if I do that, am I going to lose my job because of this? So I do know that, like, it's happening to quite a few of them out there on their routes where it's just happening right in front of them.
Sarah?
I'm really uncomfortable with the that they've been setting up in the parking lots, the postal parking lots. Because as soon as I see somebody in the parking lot that I'm not familiar with, like, we're normally approaching those people and asking them, like, "Hey, can we help you?" kind of thing. And like, it almost seems like it's dangerous for us because if we even do that to them, who knows how they're going to react towards us.
Yeah, and if you do nothing, you just say, okay, you can have access. I mean, our training is always like, hey, where's your ID? What are you doing
Hmm.
here? Like, yeah, it's the parking lot. What happened with that the Bensonville parking lot, Renee?
So they were there that Saturday morning, and they have not been back since then. So
Okay.
I've been in contact with the steward and people in the office to see if they've seen them again. I know the police station is like literally like right there on the side. So but they have not seen them since I've spoken to the postmaster.
The police station you're referring to is like the Bensonville, the local
Yeah.
municipality. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, to me, there's no relationship between the Postal Service and ICE and the Department of Homeland Security. We're we don't work directly for the federal government. There's no taxpayer dollars, in any of this thing. Um, we're we're as a result of the Postal Reorganization Act of 1970. We're regulated by Congress, so we're federal in that sense. But the Postal Service is its own entity, and I don't see any reason why the Postal Service would give use of its parking lots or its facilities or anything, to these ICE agents for them to carry out their operation. And I know it's come up, like the Mount Prospect parking lot, they use it all the time, and it's been an issue for the carriers there. And I mean, we don't want the people in the community thinking that we're part of this. You know what I mean? Like that we're letter carriers. We're here to deliver your mails and whatever. We know what our job is. And I don't think we want to get it mixed up with the mission that Department of Homeland Security has. It's a totally separate mission. It's not related to ours. Um, so there's that, and then there's the dangers of it, like you said, Sarah. I mean, you got, like, I don't know who these people are, man, and they just seem to be very reckless. Look at the way they threw that carrier to the ground. I mean, that's what we've seen all over the place, and all of the reports, and what everyone is saying is that they're running roughshod. They're acting like thugs. They're that kind of environment, and I don't think we want that type of environment around us in our place of work. So I was going to tell you, and Pat, you were there, so maybe you can comment on this. But recently, this past weekend was Committee of Presidents meeting in Orlando, Florida, and I know that it did come up because President Renfro had a conversation with me about it afterwards. So that's how I know it came up. But what was the conversation at the Committee of Presidents meeting about this subject of particularly the post office parking lots?
Well, Renfro's a good speaker, so he was kind of vague about it, going back and forth. But I think the general topic of, I think the conversation you're talking about was, a sister wanted to publicly shame the post office and have, or not the post office, what was going on, and wanted the union to say something about it. And, Renfro took the stance of, we probably shouldn't do things like this. And I kind of agree with that. I mean, I don't think we should be publicly shaming, but we should make aware that these letter carriers are being put in danger. If you guys are running out and doing this kind of stuff, this is what's going to happen. What happens if it escalates? The general consensus at the COP was we all agree that this is bad. We need to approach the post office. We need to tell them that they need to stop this with this, allowing going to the parking lots. But President Renfro did say that this is something that they have been doing. And it's not just like ICE, other agencies are able to use that. But if it's, what I got out of it was basically he's going to ask the post office to get confirmation that they're actually allowed to do so. But when he brought up all the other different agencies that are allowed to come to the post office facilities, not use the facilities but use the parking lots, it kind of sounds like that this is kind of like the norm, and we just don't we just don't see it. It's just more prevalent now.
Yeah,
To me,
I don't
it's
know about that one, man. I don't know that I've never, I don't recall ever seeing any federal agency, law enforcement agency or whatever. I don't remember seeing the FBI or the CIA. Well, CIA wouldn't operate on American soil, but DEA, AFT, whatever. I don't remember seeing any of these people using a postal parking lot. And just so you guys understand what they have in these vans, and so they'll go out and try to, like, snatch people up or whatever, and they'll put them in these mobile holding centers. Like, these vans are like have cages and stuff, and so you're detaining people you're detaining people literally on postal property. You're using postal property as a detention center temporarily, because they only have one detention center in the Chicago area, which is out in Broadview, and they don't even call that a detention center. They say that's a processing facility, but they're detaining people there for days on end as well. But they don't have the proper facilities. But like, I don't know. To me, it's just a horrible situation. you got people, what if it's hot outside? I don't know. I don't know what they're doing, but I just don't see why the Postal Service would allow them to use our parking lots. And yeah, like you said, President Renfro did say he would make an inquiry and see, but I think our position should 100% be that we don't want you using the postal properties, and it would not be safe for the letter carriers that work there, for these agents to use the postal property in that manner that they want to use it. I mean,
Yeah, I
I
agree with
think.
that.
Go ahead.
But even with our parking lot is we're surrounded by, I mean, there's a ballpark right down the street. There's kids always kind of running through. There's people, who knows what could happen. There's too many ifs, ands, or buts with this, in my opinion. Um, it's just a slippery line. Like, I agree with you. I've never seen that happen before. It's only recently that I've started to see, we have a vacant building right across the street from our post office, and I'm starting to see more, um, police vehicles, unmarked vehicles starting to show up there. And it's just a strange time.
Have you talked to any of the carriers in Mount Prospect? Because I'll tell you, they do not like the fact that the agents are staging in their parking lot there. They do not like that.
No, I haven't. Um, I know I spoke to the former president Terry Rohan because he saw the news state, the clip, and he had some choice words for it. But I haven't spoken to anybody from Mount Prospect.
Okay. All right. I don't know what more we can say on this topic. You guys got any more thoughts before we end this thing?
No.
I don't have anything per se on this topic, but I did want to give a like I guess you could say like a shout out to like Rianne and Charles Bundy for the amazing job that they've been doing out there in Wheaton with the was it the ERT team that they're a part of,
Emergency
and
response team.
yeah, and like I've seen them over the weekend like firsthand how how good they are with the carriers and things like that, and getting the carriers to open up to them and talk about their thoughts and feelings on what just recently happened over in the Wheaton station to one of the carriers. So I think they're doing an amazing job. So I just wanted to kind of shout the both of them out there. And thank you for sending like for being so quick responding to it. You were out there the next day when I let you know what happened there and that, with that carrier. So thank all of you.
Yeah, that was a absolute tragedy that happened. The carrier was in a really bad car accident and got killed the night prior to that, and had his 5-year-old daughter in the car with him, and she died as well. It was tough, but yeah, they go out there. They really do a great job, and I would say, if you guys listen to the podcast, the Fight Like Hell. I don't think it should be called the Fight Like Hell podcast, but Brian Renfro's podcast, which I enjoy listening to it. He has different guests on and stuff, but he had one couple episodes ago about the emergency response team, and he had Director of Safety and Health Manny Peralta on, and he had some of the branch presidents that had situations like they could have had you on, Renee, and you could have talked about your experience and how the emergency response team comes in and how they help the carriers out and stuff like that. So that type of episode, I would recommend you guys check it out. It was pretty good and give you some insight into what the emergency response team does.
Yeah, I support Mike Harris, so I don't think I would have had been asked to get on. But yeah, that's another thing, man.
You never know. You never know.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't see how anyone can know what someone's voting preference is, when it's a secret ballot and it's a year ahead of time. But I guess there are people that really care,
I
how
mean,
you're
hey,
going to
they
want to vote.
they
But we're not going to be those people. I'll tell
yeah,
you that. We're not going to
yeah,
be those people.
yeah.
For anyone that wants to come on this show for whatever reason, I do not care who you plan to vote for, or you may not even know who you want to vote for at this point, which is perfectly acceptable. So, I know you guys are always trying to get guests on, so let's put out that disclaimer right now. If you want to come on the show, it's just for general interests of members of the union, to give people an idea of the issues and how I would handle situations if I was the president. But it's not an endorsement if you come on the show and talk about whatever. So, I'll just get that out there. I wanted to bring up a question that I don't know what you guys think, but what is the percent you think of carriers that wear their seatbelts out there diligently versus the ones that do not, in your experience?
I think it's a really low percentage there, and uh, the carrier that we're talking about that day, I know that he was caught not wearing his seatbelt by management there. I think it was like 3 or 4 times, and the only thing they kept telling was like, oh well, and not just the seatbelt. He had his phone in his hand, and just everything else. And I just wish that management would have had acted a bit differently in that case when he was a danger to himself and others versus just saying, I'm going to PDI you on Monday.
So let's forget about management, right?
Hmm.
What can we do? What can we do as a union? And I know, like in Illinois, one we have a joint safety committee. And I don't.
Do we?
Bernay, are you still on it?
I was going. Do we? Do
They
we
no,
have
they do.
one?
That I think you just don't meet with them anymore. But
No,
anyway,
it's not that. No, wait,
no, no,
hold
no.
on, hold
Let's move on
on.
from that. That doesn't matter.
No, 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 hold on, because I'm supposed to still be on it,
Okay.
but I
I
no, I
think they have a
haven't.
meeting in a couple weeks. But anyway, but what I really struggle with this because you'll see like you'll see the seatbelts clicked into the vehicle, right? Like in the morning or on the back end or whatever, and that's a clear indication that they're putting the seatbelts in and then sitting on them so that that noise doesn't come or whatever. But it's an indication that they're not wearing their seatbelt. And I mean, this guy was notorious for not wearing his seatbelt, and look at the result. And I just wonder, what can we do? What can we do to change that behavior? It's got to be something. I don't accept that we just say okay and shrug our shoulders. Um, it was a horrible tragedy, and can we make some advancement out of this?
So what I've done personally, I know that if I'm like driving around, like I know there was like one winter in particular where like I caught one of the carriers out of my station when I was like driving up to the Union Hall, doing something that was like unsafe. Instead of me just driving past him and like just allowing for him to do it, I like pulled him over and just told him like why it was important, to either like have his seatbelt on, like the vehicle was left running, he wasn't in there. And so I just tried to just tell them why these things are important, that like it has nothing at all to do with you not getting, like if like hey, I don't want you to get written up, so don't do this. No, like it has to do with like you and your safety and
Right.
you being safe. Like management to the side, like you need to be safe. So I do act upon it if I see it.
Pat or Sarah?
I do see the younger generation actually wear their seatbelts more than the older generation.
Really?
I
That's
do I do remember when I first started driving, it was not a requirement for us to wear our seatbelts. I remember going through high school, and I think my junior year is when they actually enforced a law where everybody in the car actually had to wear their seatbelt. And I don't know if that's nationwide, but at least where I grew up, and the police were on us real big. But so that's why sometimes I kind of forget, but I think of it as a money situation. If I got to click in my seatbelt, 30, 40, 50 times a day, I don't care if it's a second, 2 second, that adds up to time. That's why we have all the things in the M41 that we're supposed to follow. And yeah, it's more of the younger generation we don't have a problem with. There's one or two. There's always a bad apple in there, but it's more of the older generation that has the seatbelt clicked in. You get in, they're always broken, and they're always the ones that always get the extra relays at the end of the day.
Well, this guy was 26. Definitely would not be considered the older generation. But Sarah, what were you going to say?
I think a lot of times when people are still new, they feel that pressure to like meet management's idea of like standards, because management, is always rushing them to do more and more work in less amount of time. So they're taking all that time that it would take to put the seatbelt on and just not putting it on, so that way they could save a couple seconds. And yeah, I think somehow getting the message that your safety is more important than making management's numbers would be
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, I think that we do have these joint committees, and there's language about how you guys should be having I think, what is it, 50 or more employees. You have a joint safety team in that office. But whatever it is, whatever you can do, I think the message has got to be that same message you just gave, Sarah. It should be given jointly, to everyone that works in that facility. And management may not want to say that, but you make them, you make them stand there and say that. Uh, but then the second thing is people got to change their habits. That's what
Mhm.
I've seen. And like Pat, you're talking about the old timers and stuff. When someone's been doing something for like 20 years, a stand-up talk ain't gonna cut it. That's not gonna change behavior. You have to physically change that person's behavior. Like even something simple like standing at the edge of the parking lot and just making sure everyone has their seatbelt as they're leaving the facility, and then checking on them when they're out there. Not in a punitive way, but we're going to be constantly making sure that everyone's wearing their seatbelt, and do it every day, do it every time. The other thing I heard someone ask me was, why don't we never get that message through the scanner? They send all these bullshit messages through the scanner. Why not that one? Make sure you're wearing your seatbelt. Click it. Save. I mean, seatbelt saved lives. I can tell you, my one of my daughters had a very, very bad car accident a couple months ago, and she walked out of that thing, but definitely was due to the to the seatbelt. And the same. Just, I mean, the seatbelt makes a big difference. I just really wish our people, at least if they can learn a good habit while you're on the clock and getting paid for it, right? And then
Mhm.
hopefully that habit will carry over into their personal life. Um, but that whole thing, that was horrible. But I'm glad you brought that up, Renee, so we can have a little conversation about that. But if people have ideas out there, things that they've done successfully to kind of retrain everyone to make sure they wear their seatbelt at all times, if you have some of those ideas, please let us know what they are. We'll spread any good ideas that people have. We'll spread them out there. We want our people, man. We want our people to go home in the same condition they came to work in every day. And that family, they lost the father and the daughter. That's a horrible tragedy. Pat, you want to say something?
Yeah, there's one thing that Jerry Bach was my academy instructor
Yeah.
back in 2009, and what I will always remember is when we did the driver portion of it, he actually made like a 3 foot doll, and then when we would deliver the mail, he would purposely try to distract us. And next thing you know, you feel a little bump, and then he'd bring you outside the car and he'd point at the doll underneath the LOV and go, "You just ran over a 3-year-old girl," and that always stuck with me. And that's every time I get an LLV, that's what I remember. Maybe that's a little bit too extreme, but it stuck with me. I always wear my seatbelt because of it, and I always credit Mr. Jerry Bach for that. So
Yeah,
maybe it's
that's
something like that
awesome.
we got to do.
Yeah, that goes to, a lot of, I don't know, we don't drive a lot of LLVs in the Chicago area that much anymore, but that LLV had all those blind spots, and they used to do the little tricks, like you said, put a fake, what it was, a human being that was not, like a fake human being, and see if you'll hit it or if you'll see it. Are you using the mirrors and checking all the blind spots when you're driving and stuff like that? Yeah, Sarah, do you guys got any other tricks at the Carrier Academy these days on this subject?
I mean, we reiterate like a million times all throughout the week. If your butt is not in the seat, don't have the vehicle on.
Yeah, especially if you're driving an LLV, man. Yeah, I'm like Renee. If I see a vehicle running, you know, I'm either do one or two things. I'll pull over and I'll go drive the vehicle someplace else just to mess with them, or I'll just like wait for the carrier to come back and be like, these things will take off. I mean, this is not this vehicle was made in the 80s. This is not a top of the line safety vehicle, but I mean, some of the newer vehicles I don't think it's that much of a danger, but I mean, any vehicle, something could happen. I mean, why are you leaving it on for what?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, you guys. Guess that's about it for tonight. So appreciate Pat. Thanks for coming on. There's many door prizes and things that you're gonna get as a result of coming on the show. Tell your friends.
I can't wait.
Yeah. But no, thanks. Appreciate you, and we'll we'll get at it. So everyone just be safe out there.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mike.
All right, brother.